It is Wednesday, the 22nd of March, 2023. This is the mid-morning pack right here on MBCI TV, your weekly show where we bring you guests and also try to unpack quite a number of issues that have happened in the country. And thank you so much that you found time to join us today on this particular show. My name is Mangicho Mala, and it's good to see you, Kagi.
Right, and as usual, every Wednesday time like this one, we are here to bring you up to date on what is happening in our country in the whole week.
Yes.
In the program Mid-Morning Park. Welcome to this program today, and of course we are going to put more light on various issues here. My name is Paul Kagi. Welcome about.
Yes, and of course, the impact of the mass action, that took place on Monday. This is our main area of discussion today, and we'll want to look at what is it that needs to be done. Can we as a country really contain this particular protest? Already the opposition has made an announcement that this will continue and it will take place every Monday and every Thursday. But is this the way to go? Should we even try to think of another protest like the one that we witnessed on Monday? This is what we'll be discussing today. And of course, you can always be, feel free to get into this conversation by giving us your opinions. And the question that we're asking you today is, what do you think needs to be done to end the current political stalemate? What do you think needs to be done in this particular country to end the current political stalemate? You can begin to give us your highlights, your views and perspectives on this. Get us live on our social media pages, that is Facebook MBCI TV, and also YouTube, that is MBCI TV Official. Also, our shortcode platform is 23814, 23814, and we'll be glad to see what are some of your opinions on this particular matter. Of course, Kagi, this is a major subject of discussion.
Yes, and of course we know the week started in a very serious situations, whereby we experienced some demos in the country from Nairobi to other parts of the country, whereby even the government itself is admitting it was a big setback to the economy. The deputy president himself said that around 2 billion shillings were lost during the demonstrations. I was looking at Sakaja's view. He is also complaining that that day alone, the county government of Nairobi lost around 3 million shillings, their collection per day. And therefore, we expect more impact if the Odinga's threat to have more demos on Mondays and Thursday is going to stand. Then our economy is going to be hard hit by the situation.
Of course, and we want to ask ourselves, or want to ask this particular question, is that what is it that needs to be done? Is it the time for a conversation to be done? The two sides of the political divide. Is it the time that they need to come together and, of course, to actually give us and give the country a direction as far as this particular matter is concerned? It is time that leaders actually need to show leadership, because at the end of the day, the average Kenyan is the one who is actually bearing the brunt of these skirmishes.
All right, and I think, Mangicho, because we will be handling that matter later on.
Yes.
We are able to look at the highlights of the day.
Exactly.
And one of the issues that is drawing my attention today is the issue of balancing between coming out with a formula from the government side to be able to make our life affordable, and also on the other end, trying to work out situations whereby we are increasing our budget, especially the wage bill. Okay. Two things that are coming up here. We are informed that according to the budget, which has been the proposed budget, the year 2023-2024, they have proposed that the offices of the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, the President, and the Prime CS, Mr. Mudavadi, and to the extension, the former President, they are going to get additional millions of money to buy vehicles, mostly coming up to around 802 million shillings for this budget. And it is very interesting because the Gashagua's office is requiring 290. And we know there was a revelation from Ukur Yatani, who was the previous finance minister, that there was a request from the Deputy President office to be able to allocate his office around 300 million shillings for the purchase of vehicle, renovation of the house, and such kind of things. So this 802 million, and then you add the budget of our 50 CSs, is becoming around quite a number of billions of money that we expect to be able to finance this year. And the question still remains, are we supposed to concentrate on maybe facilitating these areas? On the other hand, we are unable to be able to help the economic situation of our country. The balance is wanting.
Yeah, that's a very good, that's a very interesting area of conversation, and it has actually elicited mixed reactions across the country, because we know that we are living when there is high cost of living. Of course, that is something that every Kenyan at this particular point knows. We are grappling with the pending bills, even in the counties, in the 47 counties. And of course, what maybe most people think is that we should try as much as possible. And actually, even one of the expectations that people have is that this particular government should try to see what is it that it can do to cut maybe a lot of wastage, and try to, as much as possible, look at how it can actually economize, or try to make sure that it prevents what maybe we can actually call, what we can actually say, maybe it's that very, very extreme kind of expenditure. So when we see some of these proposals, then of course most Kenyans would want also to wonder, is it that maybe we are still having, or we still have a lot of resources in the country, we have sufficient funds, only that maybe they are not being directed in the right places?
Yes, even our counties are experiencing a little bit of pressure. As we know, according to the Controller of Budget, she has revealed that right now we have pending bills or up to 158 billion from our counties, led by Nairobi. And this pending bill is coming from the county government office and also National Assembly.
Right.
And the question that still lingers in my mind is, how comes we have come from all this far, whereby we have a lot and a lot of pending bills, then someone is doing something which is not right. And I'm suspicious that the county governments are using money, they are inviting supplies, and also tenders, which they are not ready to pay.
Sure.
And they are pushing the budget to the next county government. So I think the control of budget, even the central bank, and also the Minister for Finance, they need to come together with a formula to be able to manage our counties, to avoid maybe using a lot of money and also pushing that money to the next government, to the next regime. And no one is taking responsibility for this. If it is not tamed, then we are going to have this problem in the next 20, 30, 50 years to come.
Exactly. That is something that we really need to look into. And I think it's time that, because this particular issue has actually been brought to the public limelight, we want to believe that those who are involved and those who are concerned will be able to ensure that they do the right thing, so that they don't make the country to actually incur a lot of losses, when actually the common man is crying and actually going through a lot in terms of the rising cost of living. And just to inform you, our dear viewer, is that later on we'll be joined by a political analyst. Our guest today is a political analyst and also a lecturer at Kabarak University. That is Dr. Michael Ndonye. He will be here in a few minutes to help us get into the nitty-gritties of our discussion. So you can actually I expect him in a short while. He will be joining us, and we'll be able to look into quite a number of issues, especially the issue to do with the impact of the mass action that happened on Monday. We'll try to unpack and see what is it that needs to be done to actually sort this particular issue once and for all. But Kagi, again, today is World Water Day.
Yes.
And I know that water is also a major issue when you talk about or when we look at it in terms of its importance. And we're actually marking this particular day worldwide, when we know that in the recent past we've been told of rivers which have been drying in the country, and this is especially because of the human or the man-made causes.
Yeah, and we are having this day when it has taken a low profile. We expected that every media and every social media talk about the World Water Day. And we are having an issues with our water, whether it is catchment areas or maybe supplying water to our people is a major, major problem as we're speaking today. And it has been, this is an issue which has been spoken for many years, and we have not yet reached where we were expecting to be at this time around. It's too unfortunate, Mangicho, that through the let's talk about the three regimes, we have not been able to fix the situations of lack of water.
Sure.
Now, not only lack of water, but lack of clean water in our homes. And if you look at it again, the reason why sometimes we are having problems with our pastoralists is because of lack of water. We are scrambling for water for our animals. But more so, there is no regime which doesn't or has never appointed a minister or CS for water. Again, if it can have a full cabinet and ministry regarding to water, why is it taking too long for us to be able to fix the issue of water? I remember in the month of January, February, and even this March, we have been having women who are going for many kilometers to look for water in our villages as we're speaking right now. And maybe we hope with the new CS for water, Mrs. Wahome is going to manage this situation, and maybe by the end of her tenure, we are going to say that it is a history in this republic. I
think you violated it very well, Kagi, because it is not just a matter of marking this particular day. It's not just a matter of looking at it as traditionally that on every 22nd of March it is World Water Day. But then we really need to ask ourselves, what are some of the strides that we've made? What are some of the steps that we've made as a country? What are some of the issues that we've been able to put into place? And I know on a day like this, of course, people maybe will be able to congregate somewhere. This day will be marked maybe even across the country, across our 47 countries. There will be talks, there will be issues that will be raised. But I think one of the reasons why we normally maybe don't make a lot of efforts, or why we don't make a lot of steps in this particular country, is because maybe we come up with ideas, we come up with suggestions, we come up maybe with issues that maybe we want to discuss and see what is it that needs to be done to ensure that they are actually implemented. But once we discuss them, once we highlight them, it's like we just forget them. So I agree with you that it is quite unfortunate that we are marking this day when we have millions of Kenyans who cannot afford or who cannot actually access clean water. And some of these Kenyans are actually in our 4 major cities in the country.
Yes, other than maybe looking at the rights of people to have clean water, we also need to care for our animals. The other day I was following an issue from Nyandarua County regarding to Lake Olbolosat, and I met one of the activists who has been really trying to mobilize the resources, the government, to be able to manage that lake, which is the only lake in the central part of Kenya. And as we're speaking right now, that lake is now in its last breath to die. Why? I came to realize that people are blocking water from the springs that maybe feed this lake, which was a home for hundreds and hundreds of hippos in that place. This lake was It was a tourist destination.
Right.
But now, as I'm speaking, Mangicho, it is dry completely. Hippos died, and we are losing that lake because of not managing our waters. So, as much as we are talking about maybe looking for enough water for our people, also is good to be able to take care of our animals, which really need water, right?
Exactly.
Even our forests. These springs need to be taken care of. We have a culture, I don't know where you come from, we have this culture, whereby people go and block rivers to be able to do their farming, and denying other people from the other end the right to have water.
Sure.
But collectively, we need to come up with a good formulation to be able to ensure that everybody, and even animals, have the right to enough water. Exactly,
well put. And maybe before we invite our guests, maybe Kagi, you still have one more area to look into. But I've just also remembered that there is still some humanitarian crisis facing some of our Kenyans in the north, especially parts of Samburu, after they were forced or after they were asked to move out of their homes so that security operation can actually be conducted in that particular area. And I was looking at news yesterday evening, And actually, it's a pathetic situation because most of them are crying foul. There is no food. The kind of environment that they have been subjected into is very, very horrible. And it's actually also quite disgusting that this operation took place, or these locals were actually asked to move out of their homes. And as the security personnel are actually conducting the operation, the bandits are still wreaking havoc in that particular area. So it is something that is also maybe giving a lot of worry to Kenyans.
Yes, and of course, when the government decides to relocate people from one area to the other because of its own operation, they should provide a way out where people should be able to live, because everybody must be given a right to a housing. You know, even when we had an issue of the Mau Forest, the government had a plan to be able to look for a place where these people can be able to stay as the government continues with its activities. Even when we had a challenging situation with the internally displaced persons, at least there were ways the government managed these people to give them a place to stay, to give them attend, food, medical, and everything, because they have a right to be given these things. And therefore, it is upon the Ministry of Interior, which is coordinating this operation, to be able to respect the humanitarian aspect of these people, right, and provide with them an area to live with food, with shelter, with medical and other situations. Before Mangicho, we shift on the other end.
Yes.
There is an issue which has come up whereby yesterday the cabinet approved a bill to privatize parastatals. And this bill now automatically denies the parliament its oversight role when it comes to the issue of privatizing our parastatals. Okay. What do I say this? Today, the Minister for Finance, if this bill passes in parliament, the CS for Treasury has been given enough power to be able to privatize any public institution or parastatal which is not well performing. And I can give you a list of some of the parastatals which will be affected. Okay. And I think 50% are the sugar companies. And of course, you know, there has been a talk to be able to privatize public universities. So one of them is Tranquility Sugar. We have South Nyanza Sugar. We have Nzoia Sugar. We have Kenya Safari Lodges, Hotels, Consolidated Bank, Development Bank of Kenya, Kenya Meat Commission, and public universities. And this bill, have said, has given Treasury CS powers to be able to privatize public-owned enterprises without the approval by Parliament. Maybe lastly, it can be on the other side, if some organizations are not performing, we have to look for a way out. But I'm really worried if this privatization is going to rise, maybe in our universities, is going to maybe push our school fees to go high. What do we do? But why do we deny Parliament this opportunity? According to the cabinet, they want to reduce the bureaucracies that are being followed when it comes to privatization of our parastatals. And of course, most people will also will also wonder and ask the question, if we privatize anything, does it mean therefore that maybe the government cannot actually be in a position to sustain its facilities, okay, and also maybe the projects that it has? So I think it's also something that needs not just to have one particular area of looking at it, but I think it is something that needs opinions across the divide, so that at least the most and the right decision can actually be made. So much for that. I think it is now time to bring our guest in this particular conversation. Remember, the question that we are asking you is, what do you think needs to be done to end the current political stalemate in the country? What do you think needs to be done to end the current political stalemate in the country? And you can begin to give us your opinions on this particular matter. 23814, that is our shortcut platform. And of course, you can also catch us live on our Facebook page, that is MBCI TV, and also on our YouTube page, that is MBCI TV Official. And of course, we'll be glad to also look at how you respond and what are your feelings on this particular matter. Our guest today is Dr. Michael Ndonye, who is a lecturer at Kabarak University and also a political and governance analyst. Karibu sana, Daktari. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, for having me again.
Yes.
You and Kagi.
Thank you.
I'm
Most
happy.
welcome.
Always a pleasure to have you on this particular platform, even as we try to unpack some of the main issues that are actually taking place or actually happening in the country. And of course, like I have said, Daktari, I know the main issue today is the mass action. But we have highlighted quite a number of other things happening in the country. Maybe I could give you a minute to react on them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kagi and Magicho.
Yes.
I think you've highlighted a few things
Yes.
that need to be looked into, especially in the governance of this country. The first one was the issue of allocation of money in the Deputy President's office and the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. And there is also the issue of privatization. I think those are the two things that I have captured that really touches on governance directly, especially the political aspect of it.
Okay.
And I think these are some of the things we need to ask, when did they start? For example, when we talk about the funding of the offices of the presidency, let me call it that, the presidency is the president and the deputy. And also the now newly created office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary,
yes,
who is actually unequal to what used to be called now the Prime Minister. And so what we ask is that these things are coming now. We are hearing that these things, the allocation of funds, we have had such offices in the past. Have we ever wanted to ask ourselves whether the same allocation was being done and it was not being communicated to the public? Because it seems that there is some level of openness, especially with the state auditors, that we need, first of all, to appreciate, and then before we now go to the next level, that there is a bit of openness on what is happening in the presidency office. And for this case, the deputy president and the CS. And most likely, we are also going to see other state offices expenditures being brought to light, and it is something that we need to appreciate. And therefore, because that is brought now in the limelight, we need to ask, just like you are saying, is it worth is the country legitimately spending money when we know that we are facing a crisis in this country? And also, this also follows the questions we are asking with the appointment of the 50 CASs.
Yes.
Is it justified that the country can spend a lot of money when we are, the common mwananchi is hurting in terms of economy? So it is something we need actually to continue interrogating until the government justifies the reason as to why they have to allocate a lot of money in some, I can say, non-essential offices, as much as the status of things are concerned as we speak.
Exactly. And you've highlighted it very well, that it's important for maybe those who are concerned, those who are involved, and even maybe those who are affected to be able to interrogate some of these actions that are actually taken. And maybe in a situation like this, of course, maybe I know there are Kenyans, and I know maybe even there are particular groups or particular organizations that may actually want to even maybe take a particular matter like this one in the court. And of course, like even the issue that you've talked about, the issue of the CASs, I also know we'll talk about later on. So when you're talking about justification, maybe what can we say maybe should be the standard of this kind of justification for us maybe to warrant this kind of actions?
Of course, as I have said, and thank you, as I have said, this is something that has never cropped up before.
Sure.
And we know there was some time the office of the Prime Minister, there has been the office of the Deputy President, and also the office of the President. I can tell you it is the first time it is actually been laid bare open how much they spend in their offices and in their other expenditures. So it is something that has never come, and that is why we needed to ask whether this is the tradition because we need to know, is this the tradition that has never happened, or it is the first time these allocations are being done?
Right.
If it is the tradition, it means now they need to justify. It is incumbent upon them to justify to Kenyans. Why should we pump money on tea? Why should we pump money on an auxiliary office like the one of the first lady, or is the second lady or first lady of the prime CS, and also others?
Okay.
And if it is within the constitution, then it is okay. We cannot, there is nothing we can do about it. But it is upon them to justify to Kenyans, who actually are the ones who are contributing to the national coffers. It is upon them to now justify to us, why should we fund them? What value are they adding in our administration?
Right.
If they do that, then we have no other way but just to allow them to do it if it adds value, if it is giving us value for our money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome, and you've put it very well, Daktari, there. Now, getting into our main area of discussion, Daktari, and I know we had another program with you over the weekend, and the mass action happened on a Monday.
Yeah.
Did it turn out the way you expected?
No, no one expected it to be like that. No one expected that Raila Odinga would actually grid this country. And for this case, Nairobi. Nairobi is the capital city. When international relations people are talking about Kenya, they don't talk about Kenya. They call Kenya Nairobi. If we are talking about, for example, France, we talk about Paris. When we mention Paris, we have mentioned the whole of France. When we mention New York, we know what we are talking about. So when the country is when Nairobi is stilled, it just means Kenya is down, even if the other 47 counties are working. So we never expected that it will turn out like that. And of course, to the opposition, it was successful.
Okay.
Yeah, and we need to now interrogate.
When you say to the opposition it was successful, why? Because they were able to bring the city to a standstill? Because businesses did not operate the way they expected? Because there was that chase between the police and the protesters?
A good question. That's what they wanted. Yeah, because of course we know demonstration is a constitutional right for any citizen to picket, to demonstrate, to take their grievances to the authorities. So to them it was successful. And they have not said in any way that it was not successful. They have said it was successful, and it has even given them a momentum now even to add one more day per week to that effect. Because their grievances, the grievances they are pushing, they are saying those grievances must be listened to.
But Daktari, according to the opposition, it was peaceful demonstration.
Yes.
Are you saying to them it was successful because it was peaceful, or?
There is nothing like peaceful demonstration. Actually, in any democracy. We saw also the South African, whatever, because it happened the same way.
Yeah. There was actually South Africa, there was also Nigeria, and Tunisia. Which people are actually saying it was largely peaceful.
Yeah,
it was largely peaceful. Kenya.
Our Kenyan demonstration can never be peaceful. Because first of all, we need to know what drives public, or what we can call now demonstrations. Who should drive it? The driver of our demos actually is politics. It is nothing. It has actually very little to do with the prices of Wonga. And if you look at the four things that the opposition is pushing for.
Exactly.
Number one.
Just before you give us those four things, my director is telling me that let us take a short break at this particular point, and also Kagi will be coming back also with quite a number of issues. We also have Vincent Kimutai with some of the opinions from locals on this particular matter. But for now, we are taking that short breather, and we are coming back after this short break.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Kurifili sasa hivi esophagus imefika shingapi?
Inategemea how many kgs.
Wewe ile ambayo unatumia ni kgs ngapi?
13 kgs.
Ambapo kurifili sasa hivi esophagus ni how much?
The last time ilikuwa 26.
Last time ukirifili?
Yeah.
Kumaanisha imepanda hata kurifili esophagus size?
Yeah, imepanda.
Kurifili esophagus unahitaji uwe na kama shingapi sasa hivi?
1400.
Kule kuna kani 1400 sasa hivi.
Juu hata niliachana nayo, sasa niko kwa koko.
Ilibidi uachane na kurifili ile esophagus, bei imepanda. Sasa hivi unatumia
koko.
Get away. Mbavu kwa kizungu zinaitwaje?
Bones.
Uasin Gishu County, get ready for revival. Apostle Julius Subi of Highway of Holiness Ministries International, in conjunction with Uasin Gishu County clergy, pastors and bishops, invite you to the Revive Kenya Now Prayer Awakening Summit, ministering Apostle Julius Subi.
God is bringing you in a sure place. Where God is bringing you, you cannot be pulled down. He's bringing you on a rock.
Guest music minister Israel Ezekiel. Guest speaker Apostle Charles B. Gone.
For somebody else, breakthrough is to get married. I mean, we all need breakthrough, breaking through some obstacles, some challenges in life.
Dates from the 21st to the 26th of March 2023. Venue Central Primary Ground, the Tax Center, Eldoret Town. The long-awaited revival is now. Time from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. daily. Don't miss. For more information, contact 0723 689 745. Revival now.
Jipatie ploti ya 50 by 100 katika mandhari mazuri na ya kuvutia V1 Estate kwa shilingi 1649. Ploti hii inapatikana mkabala na Simba Cement, dakika 5 tu kutoka kwenye barabara kuu ya Nakuru Eldoret. Ploti hii ni mwafaka kwa kuishi. Kuna maji ya borehole na stima katika kila ploti. Ploti hizi zinaweza kufikiwa kwa urahisi kwani ziko karibu na barabara ya tarmac. Nunua sasa na upate miti iliyokomaa katika kila ploti. Tuma jina Nakuru kwa 21404 au tupigie 0758707050 au tutembelee jijini Nakuru Tower 1 Building. Hiso Properties, a culture of trust.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Welcome back and thank you so much that you're still joining us right here on the Mid-Morning Park. You're watching MBCI TV and today we are discussing about the impact of mass action that happened on Monday. And of course the opposition has already made its announcement that the mass action or the protest will be taking place every Monday and every Thursday. And we want to find out what is it that needs to be done in the country to ensure that this protest don't continue, because we believe that so many Kenyans are suffering because of the same. And we have a guest in the studio, that is Dr. Michael Ndonya. He's a political analyst and also a lecturer at Kabarak University. Thank you so much for your opinions. Continue giving them on 23814 and also on our social media pages, MBCI TV for Facebook, for YouTube, that is MBCI TV Official. And we are happy to continue seeing some of your reflections on the same. Daktari, you are making a point on maybe some of the issues, the 4 issues that you're talking about concerning the opposition.
Exactly. So I was saying, if you look at the things that the opposition is presenting, Number one is the issue of electoral reforms.
Yeah.
They are pushing the government to make sure there are electoral reforms, and I think this is something good. It is something good that, and we have been expecting that from 2007. And actually, electoral reforms have happened in this country, and we continue to improve them because it is important to have what we call continual improvement. And also the electoral fraud. That is number two, alleged electoral fraud. That the opposition leader says he won the elections and the election was stolen. And also, so I don't know clearly what he wants on that, because these are the things we need to interrogate. What clearly is he demanding the government to do on that issue? Of course, to open the servers. I think that's the answer they will tell you. High cost of living, and then recently they have added now the inclusivity in government, which makes a lot of sense. But also we need now to go back to history and realize these things are not new with the opposition. In 2017, if you remember, when they formed the National Resistance Movement that saw the opposition leader as people's president, they still were having these issues. And why is it that we are talking about these issues? Because its push was the government must agree to talk. And the government in March 2017 agreed to talk. They had a handshake. And what we should ask ourselves is that whether these things happened. Were there electoral reforms? We actually ended up with the same IBC chair overseeing the 2022 elections. Why is it that after handshake they did not change the IBC chair? And this is some of the things we need actually to ask ourselves. If we are talking about, for example, the high cost of living, of course, it is something that every Kenyan is willing to talk about. And this one is actually the reason as to why many Kenyans on Monday went on the streets. It is a reason why many Kenyans on next Monday and Thursday will go on the streets. Kenyans are not interested in electoral reforms, I can tell you. Kenyans are not interested in a stolen election. Kenyans are not interested in inclusivity, especially the hustlers. Because hustlers, what we call hustlers, these are moderate Kenyans who cannot be CSs. They cannot be CASs. They are doing their businesses. So what we need to do is to say these are legitimate claims. Okay. And the opposition leader has every right to fight for these reforms. And he has been fighting for them. Some have been successful. But what happens? What if today Raila Odinga and Ruto have a handshake? Will he still continue pushing for low cost of living? Will he still continue pushing for electoral reforms? Will he still continue pushing for inclusivity in the government? And going by the history, the answer will be no. He will not. Why? Because in 2017, he was included in the government. He did not continue fighting for the reforms. Actually, in around October, actually July 2022, he actually came out, and that is in the public domain, and he said the government has nothing to do with the skyrocketing prices of essential commodities.
And
right? And they defended it, and they used all kind of justifications, the Ukraine and this and that. So what we needed to ask then now, having known that, whose demonstrations are, whose interests are these demonstrations? So most likely, is this not common mwananchi? Most likely, that would be my opinion. Because it could be, those people who are saying it is personal, it could be true. So we need to ask ourselves whether we are being led legitimately into demonstrations. They are good, but are they legitimate?
Are they legitimate? Kagi, you had a point.
One question here, Daktari, regarding to the handshake.
Yeah.
I have been asking myself and even other people about this question. What is this handshake? What is it? What is the purpose of handshake?
Yeah. Of course, the purpose of handshake is political. That is why when we were talking about demonstrations happening in Malema in South Africa, can never accept that.
Okay.
If you read the history of Malema, he came from ANC, that is where he was breeded. But if the president, if he says, president, you are not legitimate, he will never accept a handshake. He's a politician, just like Raila Odinga. But ours is a bit different, because what are they pushing? In fact, if you look at this, what they are saying is not that the electoral reforms, all this should be done. Actually, if you are a smart communications person, you will hear what they are saying is that the president must agree to sit down with the opposition and talk.
Yes.
Actually, that is the main thing.
Yeah, because if you go on the ground,
yes.
I think the hustler or even the common mwananchi understands handshake, and that's why some politicians from the Kenya Kwanza are not for this. They understand the handshake is whereby the president should meet the opposition leader and agree to form a
coalition.
Government. That is, I think, what is people understand with that, to form a coalition.
Yeah.
And I think it's not what these guys are advocating for.
Yeah,
even Uhuru's regime, when there was a handshake, I don't think there was much of maybe Raila and Uhuru forming the government. I don't think it was reflecting as much as people may think so.
It did.
And actually, still on that note, if you were to look at the handshake that happened between the former President Uhuru Kenyatta and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga in 2017, so one would want maybe to ask this particular question. If this is what really Raila is looking for, how does he benefit individually or personally?
He did. If you remember, after the handshake, most of the Jubilee leaders, even in parliament, they were hosted. And they were replaced with ODM. That is on record. Okay. From the majority speaker, anyone who was seen as leading
does it mean that if you were to come to a handshake now, it will affect the relationship between the president and the deputy president?
If a handshake happens now, and that is why you can hear the deputy president is very much against it. If a handshake happens now, there will be a lot of restructuring in parliament. And that is why, after the handshake, the opposition went to support the government. Actually, the insiders of the government became like the opposition. So anything that was proposed by the president, who had the handshake with the opposition leader, including the BBI, they supported.
Why would there be any difficulty in the three of them working together? Or having that kind maybe of an arrangement, the president, the deputy president, and bringing the former prime minister?
Then we change the constitution. Because now we'll be beating the constitution. It means the constitution is invalid, null and void. Because the constitution did not contemplate a government where even the opposition has a place. Remember, before the 2010 constitution, the leader of the opposition was second in command. He had an office, he was to be in government. He was to be in parliament. And that is why he was an MP first, to be in parliament, to be able now to marshal the efforts, the forces against the government. But now, the 2010 constitution contemplates a second person in the election. Even if they lose by one vote, that person should go home. They have no say. So that is the problem. So if we are realizing that handshake should be part of our governance, then we should adjust the constitution to include that. Because if any Kenyan goes to court to petition that, I can tell you it will pass.
Yeah, and Mangicho and Daktari, there's this issue of, I feel that even the opposition, in a way, is very strategic in victimizing the police, so that police maybe don't go overboard. And sometimes police are forced to go overboard. Now, there has been the issue of opposition threatening to sue the Nairobi, I think, county commander, police commander. And also they are saying they are going to write to the local courts and even the international courts regarding to what is happening against the public who are demonstrating. Don't you feel it is one way, a strategic way of the opposition to be able to maybe manage, control, intimidate police, not to do what they can do when the demonstrators go overboard?
Of course, for us to answer that question, we need to understand where we are coming from, especially with opposition politics. Why do you think in the United States they don't have an opposition after elections? Because they were at one particular time in history. When you read about assassinations of J.F. Kennedy, assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., they were at a stage that we are. They used to have active opposition entrenched in their constitution. Later they realized this thing we cannot move if we have an opposition. Why? Because opposition is about interest. First of all, the interest of the opposition is for the government to fail so that they can take over. Actually, an opposition is a government in waiting. There is no way opposition can help the government to perform.
Okay.
So if they have ways of sabotaging the government, they will. If they have people who can fund them to sabotage the government, they will. We are talking about the police. That is the state. There is the government and the state. The state is totally different from the government. Because when the state is supposed to, of course, to be managed by the government in place, and the state has some forces that it can use. When we are talking about demonstrations, for us, the constitution that actually governs the government, for the opposition, it is a right to picket, to petition, to demonstrate. To the state, it's a national security issue. Yeah. So to them, they view demonstrations as a national security issue. They are not seeing peaceful. It is your right.
And actually, because
they don't see that.
These are elicited mixed reactions.
Yeah.
I don't know from where you sit. So who is it that provoked the perceived and peaceful demonstrations? There are those who think that it is the police.
Of
there are
course.
those who think it is the protesters.
The aim of the opposition is to disrupt the nation. And we need to understand that in opposition politics in Africa, because they are not there in developed world, they killed them because they realized this thing cannot work. But remember, we live under imperialism. So we have other forces, other interests that controls African countries. So when we have demonstrations, remember, if you read the Constitution, Article 37, even before that, just start Article 32, 33, 34, 35. You realize there are actually rights of expression. All these rights have delimitations. Why do you think Article 37 of the Constitution has no delimitations? Like the right to freedom of expression. But you are told freedom of expression does not include this and this and this. The Constitution should have contemplated a delimitation for Article 37 and say picketing, demonstration, and this should also be limited to this and this and this. It is because this thing is not ours. The issue of opposition is not ours. So when the opposition go to the streets, their aim, first of all, is to provoke the government, for the government to act. So that now, out of the consequences of what will happen, now they can have a voice, a legitimacy in the international politics. And therefore, the human rights now can come in. So when they go on the streets, there are two things. If police keep off, these people will loot and damage property. If they do that, the opposition will come and ask the police, where were you? Why didn't you protect the property of people? Why didn't you arrest the hooligans? How can you tell between the real and the person who is not an hooligan? Okay, be there as police. Identify a hooligan. Just arrest them. The others will come on you until you act. And when you act again, now you are told you are now the one inciting violence. In either way, the police are in a state of dilemma. In handling demonstrations.
I want us to also, we'll be coming back with more on that next side, and Ogi will also come in. But if my director can now give us, that is Vincent Kimutai, who was also in the streets to also find out what do Kenyans think about this protest, what do Kenyans think about this mass action. Let us join our reporter Vincent Kimtai on this.
Shukran sana Mangicho Mola pamoja na Paul Kagi mkiwa upande wa pili wa studio, na kama ambavyo mmeweza kusema, siku ya Jumatatu tuliona upinzani ukiandaa maandamano kwenye maeneo mbalimbali nchini, ambapo walikuwa wanashinikiza serikali kupunguza gharama ya maisha pamoja na kufungua server za IEBC pamoja na kutaka kushirikishwa kwenye mchakato mzima wa kutafuta makamishna wa IEBC. Na leo tuko hapa kuweza kuzungumza na Wakenya kuhusiana na maandamano, tukitaka kufahamu je, maoni yao ni yapi kuhusiana na maandamano ya siku ya Jumatatu, na pia kuhusiana na mipango ya upinzani kutaka kuanza kufanya maandamano kila Jumatatu, ikizingatiwa kuwa siku ya Jumatatu biashara mingi ziliweza kuathirika pamoja na shughuli za usafiri kusitishwa. Vile vile naibu wa rais Rigathi Gachagua akizungumza siku ya Jumatatu akiwa Mombasa akaweza kuweka wazi kuwa shilingi bilioni 2 iliweza kupotea kutokana na watu kuhofia kufanya biashara katikati mwa jiji la Nairobi. Ndiposa tuko hapa hivi kuweza kuzungumza na Wakenya kutaka kufahamu je, maoni yao ni yapi kuhusiana na maandamano, na ni maandamano ni suluhu ya kudumu katika kushinikiza serikali kupunguza gharama ya maisha na kutaka kutekeleza matakwa yao. Tutakuwa tukizungumza na Wakenya mahala hapa.
Wajina anaitwa Bashir ama Peter, anafanya kazi jua kali mechanic. Ile kitu iko. Maandamano sio mbaya, lakini maandamano usiharibu kitu ya mtu. Ile kitu suluhisho ile tunaweza fanya. Raila na mtu anaitwa Ruto wakae chini. Sisi hatuna chama, tubagui chama, lakini Kenya ni ya kila mtu. Kwa hivyo wakae chini, waelewane, wajue mwananchi wa kawaida atasaidika kivipi. Ni kama mzee mwenzangu amesema hakuna mvua, hakuna nini, wapunguze tena bei ya mbegu. Ndio at least kupanuke. Lakini wakianza uadui, watusaidii. Mimi kama raia naumia. Ile kitu iko, waelewane. Nani sio mtu hapo? Nani sio mtu? Kila mtu ni mtu. Ile kitu iko, waelewane. Na mtu asifinyilie mwingine. Na Ruto naye akubali vile kuko. Asichague ati hii chama hii kunichagua, hii chama hii kunichagua. Sisi wote ni wa Kenya. Aweke wa Kenya pamoja, wakiwa na Raila pamoja.
Okay, mimi naitwa Joy Anana. And as for me, I would really like to say that maandamano si solution yoyote kwa the things that are happening currently in Kenya, because I feel and understand that kwa hii kuandamana many souls might be lost, many things might be destroyed. Apart from sisi kuungana pamoja, we look for a favorable solutions that will help us. Kuandamana for me is not a solution for sure.
Unaweza toa, wewe ni mwanafunzi wa Egerton, nataka utoe mawaidha yako kwa wanafunzi wa vyuo vikuu. Aswa tuliona Maseno University kuna mwanafunzi mmoja anadaiwa alifariki. Maoni yako ni yapi kwa wanafunzi katika kuhusiana na maandamano?
To my fellow students, mimi ningetaka kuambia that about politics, it is in a way they say it's a dirty game, and if you're not ready to bear the cost of what it will come with, I don't see the importance or the need to go for it.
Mimi ni Kareb kutoka hapa Tunax. So mimi hiyo maandamano sikuona kaa inafaa. Ama boys wanafaa wakae chini, waongee waelewane. Hii story isha tu. Juu hata mimi nikiangalia kwangu, side yangu, sasa ni kama watu wamefungia kazi pesa sana. Hata kitambo nilikuwa busy. Hata hiyo time venye hiyo mambo ilikuwa imeisha, nilikuwa tu sawa. Kinsa hii kwanza jana sijaona ka kitu. Na bado mimi nilikuwa kazi. Mimi naona tu waongee.
Kwa majina naitwa Astoy Woi. Kwa upande wangu ninaona maandamano si suluhu, lakini wenda pengine message haijafika kwa kupatana kukaa chini. Kama wangelikaa chini ingelikuwa mzuri. Wenda kuna upande moja inavuta upande hii mwingine. Lakini pengine hii maandamano ilikuwa ni kutumia njia waitikiwe wakae chini. Tunaona ikiwa maandamano itafanywa kwa njia ya taratibu na iwe na njia ya kwamba message yao isikizwe, hata Wakenya sisi tutasema wasikizwe, kwa sababu kweli bei ya gharama ya kuishi imekuwa gali mno. Hasa imekuwa kwamba sasa ni meal moja mtu akule, hiyo ingine asahau kwa sababu hamuna pesa, hamuna kazi. na sasa tunaona hiyo ndio sababu pengine maandamano, na ukaona wengi walijitokeza jana kwa hiyo maandamano, kwa sababu ni walala hoi, hawana kazi, ni idlers. Kwa hivyo jambo la muhimu ni kwamba serikali isikize, ipatiane ya kwamba rais wetu wapate kuongea, alafu kisha baadaye waweke mambo katika laini, kwa sababu hakuna kitu ambaye watu wanapoongea haiwezi kuleta suluhu. Kwa hivyo ningeomba suluhu ipatikane upande ya serikali na upande wa opposition, wapate kusikizana. Hao watu ni wale wanajuana tangu kitambo, kwa hivyo si jambo geni, wanatakana wapatane ndio watupatie sisi raia kwamba tutaishi kwa staili gani, pesa itapatikana magani.
Sasa ile kitu tunaona hii maandamano, tuachane na mambo ya maandamano, watu waketi waongee, na pia tuangalie maneno ya kuvunja sheria. Ati lazima tuandamane tuende State House. Kweli tunaweza enda State House? Tunaweza? Restricted area hatuwezi. Sasa anataka tu watu waende wapigwe marisasi hapo bure, na yako kwa gari, tia gasi ikitupwa, yeye anainama kwa gari anajifunikia. Sio ni kumaliza watu. Yeye amekuwa mzee, aachane na siasa. Tumeona Nigeria demonstrating, juzi wamechagua mzee wa miaka 82, sasa wanaandamana ati yeye ni mzee. Hata sasa huyu mimi ningesema hata yeye aache siasa, awe mzee wa kupeana mashauri, lakini si siasa.
Maandamano ningesema maandamano inastahili, because we are having a problem na the government. Wakienda pahali wamepata platform, wao ni matusi, hawaheshimu mtu mwenye alipata kura milioni 5. Najua ana represent some, kuna watu anawakilisha, kwa hivyo anastahili respect. Sasa hata tukishida tukisema watu waongee, na wenye wanastahili kuongeleshwa ndio hao ni matusi, na hata hawajapeana hiyo space ya waongee. So ndio wakuwe sensitive, wacha turushiwe tear gas. I prefer wa import sigina hizi, naona ni zile Uhuru alikuwa amenunua za kupambana na Raila hasi kutumika. Ndio zinatumika, ndio unasikia watu wakisema ni tamu sana. Badala ya umie wanasema tear gas ni tamu. I prefer hii maandamano isae. Sio ati isimamishwe tu watu waongee. Wacha one Wakenya wameumia.
Mangicho pamoja na Paul Kagi, hayo ni maoni ya Wakenya kuhusiana na maandamano ya upinzani siku ya Jumatatu, ambapo tumeweza kuona wengi wakisema maandamano hayana manufaa kwa kuwa zinaathiri biashara pamoja na shughuli mbalimbali nchini. Wengi wameweza kutoa wito kwa Rais William Ruto kufanya mazungumzo na kinara wa Azimio Raila Odinga ili suluhu ya kudumu ikaweza kupatikana na maandamano kusitishwa nchini na Wakenya wakaweze kuendelea na shughuli zao za kawaida. Nikiripotia Mid Morning Park, jina langu ni Vincent Kimutai.
Yeah, there you go, our reporter Vincent Kimutai on the streets, getting the reactions of Kenyans, the opinions of Kenyans concerning the protest or the mass action by the opposition, and quite a flurry of opinions there, Daktari. But then, maybe one would want to ask this particular question, Daktari. Is it the only, must we reach to this particular level of getting into protest for there to be solutions? Is it really necessary?
No, I don't think it is necessary.
Yes.
And it is not necessary. It should not be necessary. Because if we are to speak, for example, I want to agree with one of the speakers there, that we should also tell the government that there are things that they should have buried, like when you're saying when they go to every platform, they are also mentioning and belittling the opposition leader. Opposition leader is not a little person. That person got 6.9 million votes.
It was actually almost half.
Against 7.1. The difference is very small. And we expect that that person should be respected.
But the winner takes it all.
The winner takes it all, and that is where now we need or actually to look into the constitution, whether it was fair. If someone has a support of 6.9 million, that's a lot of people.
Yes.
And when they are not in, they feel they are excluded.
But the constitution also says the president is the president of the entire country.
It doesn't follow like that. Let me tell you, the constitution is not human. The constitution is legal. It is legal, it doesn't mean it is ethical. Because ethics now brings the human aspect of it. So we need to know that in the spirit of continual improvement, it is time we relook at our constitution. Because it seems in this particular political aspect, this constitution is weaker than the former one in terms of the political post-election aspect. That means someone cannot just get all those votes and then go and sit at home. They have people who believe in them. These people believed in them. And when a government comes like we have, and their work is actually now to speak against this leader.
Right.
Every other time they are bashing him and they are telling him how he lost. Then they actually justify the reason as to why he should also come out and prove to them that I am not a small boy. I have people, I have a constituency I control in this country. So I think that makes a lot of sense, that when they said we have become the government of everyone, it should have been seen. It was not seen. These are some of the consequences, and that is why we should not go to this far.
Yeah, I think Mangicho and Daktari, there's one observation I've made for some time, which I think you can give your own sentiment regarding to how we sort out this problem. As you have heard, everybody is like advocating the president and the opposition to have a talk to be able to end the stalemate. Looking back in Kibaki's, but more so Uhuru's time handshake, before the handshake was made, there was a repeat of this kind of a situation, if you remember very well. And everybody was advocating for the President Uhuru and Raila to talk, to end this kind of a situation. And even went ahead even to pray hard to God that to enable these two people to be able to meet and talk. And God heard our prayer. And you know, after that, the country now went back to normalcy. But again, which I'm really suspicious even today, after the handshake and after now everything went back to normal, after Uhuru worked with Raila, the same people who pushed for them to talk and to bring country into order, the same people again started complaining, what did you come to do here? Are you seeing that?
Yeah.
So you wonder, why should we push for these guys to talk like we are doing today? After they talk again, after everything now has settled down, we revert back what we had pushed for, to come together and bring order in the country. And sometimes I feel we Kenyans, we are not genuine. If really we are pushing for Raila and the president to talk, then we should allow it to happen and to forget about everything else, right? Instead of allowing them to talk today, and then tomorrow we start saying, no, I think these people are not supposed to talk again. That is, I think that's where sometimes we lack the connection between the situation.
You are right. You are right, Kagi. And let me tell you, what we need to deal with is the structures of our leadership. We need to deal with the constitution, let me tell you. Whether we like it or not, the problem and the reason why people have normalized the issue of talking, it means we are beating the constitution that says the winner should lead the government. In the United States, let me go back there, Trump actually was voted by 72 million United States.
Right.
But after he lost, even if he were to lose with one vote, after he lost, he is supposed to actually go back to his village and stay there. Even the media, if we start talking, actually, including the social media, you know it is owned by the US, they will block him. They will close his accounts. They will make sure he is nowhere. He can only speak from his office. So unless we have to choose whether to have a constitution that is inclusive and accommodating, number two, or we have a constitution that actually is what I can call radically democratic. The majority rules over the minority, so that the winner is given a chance to be responsible for his mistakes. One reason why we cannot hold Kibaki responsible for the mistakes he did is because the opposition is inside. One reason we cannot hold Uhuru responsible, especially in his second term, is because he can easily say, we were with Raila Odinga. He saw this happening. And that is what actually weakened the opposition towards the 2022 election. So it is the structures. And because for us, because of those structures, number one, the opposition will continue to take advantage, going to the streets and therefore justifying the reason why they should talk. What kind of talk is not about Mwananchi, it's about accommodate us. And when we are inside, you can do whatever you want to do with the Mwananchi, and we can defend you.
But there's a proposal already in Parliament to be able to accommodate opposition, to have the opposition office, maybe maybe the proposed deputy president in the opposition as also an office and everything. I think we have already a structure which has not passed to the Parliament.
That proposal is interesting, coming from the government.
Yes.
Actually coming from the executive.
Actually, the proposal was actually to silence the opposition.
Yes.
Yeah, to silence the opposition. I think they just refused to agree directly because they don't want to face the shame of doing that. They want it to be done back at the back door. Okay. So that Mwananchi and the international community does not come and say, now you are killing the opposition you are agreed with someone you told us this person cannot lead this nation.
How silence? They are given a platform to be able to advocate their issues inside the parliament. Why should you say they are silenced?
So who will go inside the parliament? Because they are there in the parliament. Actually, in parliament, they are 50-50, I can tell you. So does it mean the opposition in parliament cannot do the opposition work? It is not true. Actually, parliament is almost a half UDA, a half Kenya Kwanza, the Azimio. Why is it that they are not telling us they can do their oversight there? It's because this is not about what we are seeing. It's a different thing.
So, and Daktari now, because even following these demonstrations, of course, you've heard the president has already talked. And the president is categorical that nothing extrajudicial, nothing extra legal will be done. And if we were to look at the four issues that you talked, that you mentioned, that are at the heart of the opposition, that is what they want to be addressed. The issue of electoral justice, and actually even the former prime minister is on record saying that we demand the return of the four commissioners that were hounded out of office, and he's saying it was unjustifiable for the four commissioners actually to be out. But we know that some of these things that the opposition is talking about were actually addressed by the Supreme Court. Now, at what stage are we now? Are we at the stage now whereby we don't want now to look at things in relation to what our laws say?
Yeah, we have a constitutional crisis, and because there are a lot of angles you can look at this. Number one, the issue of electoral fraud, that the vote was stolen.
The Supreme Court addressed.
The committee of experts, who were led by the late Zamba Kitonga, they sat down. They looked at these things, the history of this country, and they contemplated a Supreme Court whose main mandate is to handle presidential petitions, so that Wananchi don't go to the streets. Actually, that was the main thing. We had elections on 8th August 2022. The opposition leader did very well. They followed the constitution. They went to the Supreme Court. And the committee of experts contemplated that the pronunciation of the Supreme Court is final. It should hold. If they nullify the election, it is final. If they uphold the election, it is final. And they don't owe anyone a bigger explanation. The Supreme Court said President Ruto was the president-elect
and he won fair
and legitimate.
Yes.
We were supposed at that particular time to sit down and be, actually the Constitution says no one else should question that. So when we start saying it is not, now we are politicizing the issue which is in the Constitution and therefore define the Constitution. Number two, if we are talking about electoral reforms, that is not legal, but by history, as I said before, we can go back to the history of the opposition. Chebukati was in charge of 2017 election, which was nullified by Maraga. And Raila Odinga formed NRM and said Chebukati must go.
Yes.
But you can realize it was not about Chebukati because he went into Adishik and he forgot about Chebukati. Are you getting?
Yes.
So this it is neither here nor there. And I explained before actually about also the issue of prices going up. Yeah. So it is not about that.
It is not about that.
Yeah.
So that basically means that even when you talk about some of these institutions that maybe Kenyans have really done a lot to bring them, or actually maybe even to establish them, like maybe the judiciary, the Supreme Court. Now, if we have such institutions which do their work, only maybe for the politicians to dismiss them.
Yeah.
It therefore basically means that there is, maybe even in the first place, there is no need, because if we cannot actually abide by what the Supreme Court said, it's like now, does it mean that maybe we just leave the issues and the problems that Kenyans have and maybe the politicians have to be solved politically?
Yeah, because we are at a stage of democracy where the law is now the servant of politics. There will come a stage when we talk about mature democracy is where politics is a servant of the law, not the other way around. As long as we are there, the president, and that is why we have killed the confidence and trust with our constitutionally established independent institutions.
Right.
The IEBC, you can talk about even the judiciary. We have no confidence in them because a politician will just say these people were bought and it is done. If we are in the United States, you cannot hear something like that. But I don't want us to compare Kenya and US. US is a mature democracy. But we need to have a continual improvement and examination of our structures so that we move towards a mature democracy. And doing that, it means hurting some people. It will mean at one particular time killing the opposition and having an opposition that matters. The reason why actually civil society in 1990s, civil society was very active. It is not active now because it has been captured by the politics. Because civil society wants to fight for the real things. But a politician, no politician has legitimacy, I can tell you, to lead what we call civic fighting for the rights of the citizen. If they go, they have their own interest. Okay. And if you want to know now, just yesterday, for the last 1 month, the deputy president has been actually talking against the media. And you know that. It is in the public domain. Interestingly, 1 week before the demonstrations, everyone was trying to tell the government, please, can't you be tolerant to the media, which is the fourth estate? Why are you delegitimizing them? What happened yesterday?
Yes, the opposition also.
The opposition is now in the same line. So at one thing, as we speak now, the opposition and the government agree on is on fighting against the freedom of expression of the media.
Wow. It is very dangerous.
That is very dangerous. So if you look at these things, you realize to some extent they agree when their interests are being fulfilled.
Yes.
So they have the same interest. But the civil society If you want to go and fight for the, for example, for the rising standards of living now as we speak, which side would you be? Because Raila Odinga has his own interest, but you will be put on the side of the opposition, whose interest is totally different from fighting for the lowering of prices of goods and services. And it puts even the media in the dilemma. Should we continue fighting for the high or life standards that common Mwananchi is doing, or we should just keep quiet? When it comes to that point, even the media just keeps quiet, because they will be put somewhere, because Kenya is a binary opposition kind of structure. If you criticize the government, they don't believe that you can criticize the government and still support it. They don't believe that you can be a Kenya Kwanza critic and then still be in Kenya Kwanza. No. Once you do that, you are told you are in opposition. They don't believe that you can be in your opposition and criticize Raila Odinga. Immediately you do that, you are told you have eaten from Sugoi. So at the end of it, you are left with only two options. There is no middle ground, and we know very well the golden rule, the virtue lies at the center.
And so, Daktari, when you see what happened on Monday, there is a report of loss of lives, there is a report of injuries, there is also a report of destruction of property. And of course, quite a number of Kenyans also made and incurred losses because they were not able actually to open their businesses, especially in the city. So even as we have threats of these kind of protests going on next week on Monday and Thursday, if there is not going to be immediate solution, so who is supposed to be held responsible? Who is supposed to be arrested over this?
We have no structures on that, on who should be responsible. Because the government will say, by law, the government is responsible to protect Mwananchi. That is by law. And so there is also an opposition which actually is by default operating with a lot of impunity, because the law allows them, the constitution, the law of the land allows them to picket, to demonstrate and do that. In fact, as we go forward, the president in the current situation will have to cow. He will have to give in and agree to talk to Raila Odinga. Or he must sit down and scrutinize himself. Where is it that he is stepping on the toes of the opposition leader? So that he removes his foot from the opposition leader and everything, we will have peace that surpasses human
Do you think that
understanding.
will be staging a very bad precedence?
The precedences are already there. Uhuru did it. Uhuru Kenyatta did it. So it's a precedent. But
some people will think, okay, if even if we know that maybe this is not the right thing to do, or even if we know that whatever is it that we are asking for maybe is not even legal, is not even justifiable, but if we want the government to give in, let's just go into the streets.
Let me tell you, yeah, of course, that is what we are going to have infinitum until we have some structures. If you heard the sentiments of the people on the streets, is that they want one thing. Their interest is not even the handshake. They want peace. Just that. Whatever brings peace, and that is what Kofi Annan did. He realized, yes, there is election fraud, there are malpractices, there are a lot of things which cannot add up, but first peace is the main thing. So if anything is going to happen that can bring us peace, so that you can do your business without being disrupted, at whatever cost, peace is expensive. And people will tell you that. So whether it is illegal or it is legal, sometimes it comes a time when you override even the constitution for the sake of peace. Because, let me tell you, someone said yesterday somewhere that it is actually 100 times better to be led by a dictatorial government, to be led by an exploitative government, than to live with no nation at all. And if you look at Somalia, you can understand what they are talking about. If you look at Southern Sudan, these are countries which are just with us. If you look at Ethiopia, those countries have been hit by civil unrests, war and that violence, and those countries in much of their parts, they are destroyed. There is no country. You can realize, just think of the money you have in your bank account. If we have civil unrest today that goes overboard, and then you just get a notification that your money has disappeared, and there is no one you can ask because everyone is on the street, the military are all over, and even someone, you go to your house and realize someone is occupying your house, and there is nothing you can do. People in Kenya do not really understand what it means to be peaceful. They don't understand, because we have not yet reached to a point where we can say this country can be actually in the index of what we call civil unrest hit countries, countries which are going into the doldrums. And that is what we need actually now to understand. So whatever cost, Mwananchi wants peace, they want to do their business and this and that, they know. Actually, Mwananchi knows this thing is not about us. Let them sit at the talk and agree we don't care, whatever they say. But for us, we want to have our business going on.
Sen Mangicho, I'm trying to ask myself here, Daktari, why is it difficult for the president to be able to honor the 4 demands from the opposition? And if it is not possible to do the 4 of them, which ones do you think he can be able to do with immediate effect to be able to calm the situation? As you do that, I'm thinking of the situation of the subsidy, which maybe becomes number 1 demand from the opposition, whereby the government is saying the subsidy was there, it was misused, it didn't bring the cost of unga down. And why don't the government, again, because it seems the government has money by the look of things, if they can be able to have a budget of 100 million for cars and maybe employ 50 assistant ministers, that means the government has money. Last time I saw that the government has been has accepted to pay more than 100, I think 30 billion for the CDF. So the government has money. Why don't the government use this money? If Uhuru government mismanaged subsidy, they use the same subsidy in this regime, but use it correctly to be able to subdue this cost of living.
Yeah, good question. Number 1. These demands, they are not just thrown here and there. These demands are rhetoric, and I can tell you, do you know what we mean by a rhetoric question? It's a question that we don't demand an answer, because obviously you cannot find an answer. You understand? Yes. Opposition are very clever. They sat down and came up with agendas that they know, even if you do what, the government cannot fulfill this. And you just look at them critically.
And if they cannot fulfill, so what happens?
You know, the work of the opposition is a waiting government. It's a government in waiting. And I told you, the work of the government is to, the opposition is to sabotage the government.
If I'm hearing you well, the main thing that they want to do is to make sure that
this thing is not working.
The government. They make it impossible.
There is no way the opposition can sit down and help the government
to govern.
Akuna, there is nothing like that. The way politics works,
whether the government is actually working well or not,
they cannot give them things that they can do. Look at, just listen to them. Just go to those demands. Number 1, the issue of the opening server. Is this the work of the government to open servers?
And they've made it look like it is actually the role of the president.
Yes. Now tell, how will Ruto open servers? We know very well the Smartmatic company that was in charge of the data. They said actually, even before we went to election, you signed. We don't open servers. After elections, we don't. And it was signed by the president and the opposition leader. They know it cannot happen. Everywhere that company has run elections, whether in South,
there is valid reasons.
There are valid reasons for that.
Yes.
Number 2, the issue of subsidy. Let me tell you, subsidies. Even if I did some little economics, as a minor in my in whatever. Subsidies cannot sustain a country. And I want to tell you, when we had subsidies, the EP, is it called the energy controller in this country? They were actually increasing the price of fuel. They were reviewed every month, if you can remember. Every 14th of the month, they were being reviewed upwards. If subsidies continued, we would have, even today, actually, the price of petrol would be over 200 shillings. Why? Because, but when the subsidies were removed, it stabilized the price of, it just increased the price of petrol, and the prices have stabilized. Until yesterday, or some days ago, when now the fuel increased by 2 bob. You go and look at the trend of the increase of prices in the year 2022, you'll be surprised. They were increasing every 14th because they were reviewing every 14th, because as the dollar went up, the price of petrol was going up. Today, the dollar has been going up and the prices are stable. Subsidies can never sustain a country because you are borrowing.
As a short-term plan?
It should be a short-term plan. But as we speak now, there is no short-term plan. We have been having a prolonged drought. Sure. So if you want like when they introduced subsidies, it was a whole year of subsidies. Even today, we would be having subsidies. So unless the president wants to give us 2 weeks of lower prices, then we go up again. It cannot be sustained, and it is very expensive for a country.
So in the long term, and maybe actually that is the question, as you've said, to most people, yeah, they would agree that maybe subsidy was not the way to go. Of course, the then government thought that this is a better way of cushioning Kenyans. But now the current government is saying what Kenyans have to do is to give us time and be patient and actually persevere until a time when we are not very sure.
Yes, we cannot be sure. Because number one, you need to know that how many months have passed since the government came into power? Yes. It's around 4 months. Number two, the high cost of living has not come with the current government. That was inherited from the former government. So it is not actually their fault.
Don't you think that can actually be a fault? Don't you think that can be a bad excuse?
Actually, it can. It can, and they will excuse themselves because the former government excused themselves. You know, when we set bad precedences, yes, that's the precedence. These people told us this about Ukraine is about war. It is not about the government, and therefore we can actually misuse. Yeah. We can misuse that
because every government will be coming in and saying,
and then the same government did a mistake because they lied to Kenyans. When we get to power, they knew very well. First of all, let them face whatever they are facing, because when the government was defending itself, and they were saying this thing is not us; it is an international thing. They were saying no. You understand? Yes. They were saying no. It is something we can solve if we get in. Let them solve now. You know, they are now eating. They are reaping what they planted. It is not, and they are finding it very hard now to undo what they did.
I'm trying to reason here. What is this the government want to do in terms of stabilizing, especially the issue of food, to be particular issue of flour? Do you think the government has another plan for stabilizing the issue of the ugali, other than waiting for the rains to come? We wait for the harvest to come in November. Is there any other plan?
No, I don't think they have a plan, because they were surprised. I don't think they were planning even to win elections. They were surprised when they won. And then Mwananchi had taken note of what you told us. Within 100 days, this thing is going to go down. Within this thing is going to go down. Then when they came in government, they realized, wow, things do not work just like that. Okay. That was rhetoric. Now the reality is here. And that is also what is giving now the opposition legitimacy. Mulisema, tulijaribu kuambia hii kitu nia, lakini mulituambia with the data, statistically, that it is possible to lower the price of things even when there is war in Ukraine, even when there is inflation of dollar and that kind of a thing. Now do it. So at the same time, we realize they closed themselves. And therefore, we knew it was not possible, but they could not listen. Yeah.
Wow. I know we have a few minutes, but Dr. though we had talked about this particular issue in another program, but for the purposes of our viewers also in the mid-morning pack, the nomination of 50 CASs. Yes, and of course coming when we also had a very big debate about the legality of this particular position, even as continue to see. Did we really have to have this number?
Still, we are going back to presidencies. You see, the problem we have in this nation, we forget to know that when we create things for our own, they come with us in the future. When the first time CASs were created by the government against the constitution, because they are not there in the constitution. But maybe you've seen what they call the orders from the president or blah blah. Civil society raised concerns that why are you doing this? But people defended it. You see, law, it becomes silent when the people speaks and everyone seems to be agreement, because law is created by us. It is not the law that creates us. So we allowed it.
Okay.
Just the same thing you are seeing the prime cabinet secretary. If you remember when those things were talked in during the campaigns, and every political side was trying to create these positions where utapewa, and we were trying to tell them, there is no such a position. You are being lied. And both sides defended. And they said, no, it should be there.
For inclusivity.
For inclusivity. But it is not there in the Constitution. Why are we creating something that is not in the Constitution? No one heard. Now, there is, you know, even when you listen to the opposition, they are talking in low tones about this year's position, because they defended them when they were not supposed to defend.
Yes.
So at the end of it, it is bloating our wage bill. Any president, there is no limitation. You see, for CSs, there is a constitutional limit. This is the number of. But for CASs, because it has no constitutional limitation, even if a president in future comes and say 1,000 CASs, you will do nothing, because it's a political creation. So I think it is something that is not fit. First of all, it is meant to award political people who helped in. Actually, it is meant for inclusivity, political inclusivity. What political inclusivity means is that you supported me, you supported me. Of course, for me to be able to get 7.1 million, I needed soldiers on the ground. I need to include all of you in my government because you worked for me. That is what all this is all about. But it was created illegally. It was supported by both sides. Even if Raila was president today,
you do the same.
We would be having the same. Yeah, I can tell you. So some of these things we set precedences. We set actually precedences for now and forget about the future. And that's the problem.
And the question that maybe some Kenyans would also want to, and maybe even some people are actually wondering, because this is, like you've said, most of those who have gotten these particular opportunities, and maybe most Kenyans would not have had a lot of problems if maybe the 50 names that we've seen there would have been maybe of people who have not been known, but people who are competent. But now, it's recycling of the same names
Yeah.
that have held positions previously.
Yeah.
Some governors, some senators, some MPs. What does it say maybe about the promises that maybe we made?
There's promises, because the Constitution, the 2010 Constitution ceased operating in 2017. We don't follow the Constitution. I want to tell you, go to the Constitution and look at the way the Constitution defines a CS. It's supposed to be non-political,
Yes.
not a politician. The Constitution has very clear guidelines on who a CS should be. Look at the 2013 government. They tried, because they were strictly, everyone was looking at them. Are you going to bring a politician here? After 2017, my friend, even during the reshuffles that happened between 2013 and 2017, politicians started coming back, and no one is talking. They started coming back, and as we speak now, you just go and find someone is contesting for a governor, and you tell them, wewe bana, you step down for this, wewe nitakupea CS, a politician. So when it comes now to an open-ended thing like CS, we don't expect anything different.
Okay.
We just expect politicians to be there, and that is why we should go back to the Constitution and limit and say we want 16 CASs, we want this number of CSs, okay? And then these are the qualifications of that person. Then we follow that to the letter. And we activate the civil society, because it is the only one that has no political ambitions. The person who should lead civil society should not have political ambitions. If they have political ambitions, they will have their own interest. So it is not a surprise that you are actually the president, this government, and also the former government. They are appointing political rejects in their administration. People who have been rejected by the voters. It is a sorry state.
Maybe lastly, Mangicho.
Yes.
Then who is the defender of this constitution? Because we have the highest court in the land. It seems to be toothless.
Yeah. The president was sworn in to defend it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who is the protector of this constitution?
It should be actually the judiciary.
Yeah.
But the judiciary has been, through rhetoric, through politics, it has been dehorned, I can say. It has no power because politics seems to interfere with whatever they do.
Yeah, because the court has declared illegitimate the issue of the CAS.
Yeah.
And no one is taking responsibility for this.
Yeah. Because as I said before, we are operating a system whereby the law is the servant of politics.
Of politics.
Until we reach a point where politics is the servant of the law, we'll continue to see these uprisings.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so much for today. What a robust conversation right here on the Mid-Morning Park. This is where we unpack what are some of the things happening in the country, trying to make sense of them, and also trying to provide some direction so that we can have a great country to live in. We want to register our gratitude to our guest today, Dr. Michael Ndonye, a lecturer at Kabarak University, governance and also a political analyst. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you.
Asante sana. And of course, we'll do it again next week at a time like this. Thank you also so much for following us and also for participating. Your comments and opinions always appreciated in this particular show. On behalf of the entire crew that has made this a success, my name is Mangicho Mola. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.
Yes, my name is Paul Kagi. Thank you for having time to be with us this morning. Till next week, God willing, bye for now.